does the darkness of the ocean depths really hide? What if our planet's strangest creatures weren't on land, but in the unexplored abyss? Dear traveler, welcome. Today we plunge into a world as close as it is unknown, a parallel universe that covers more than 70% of our planet. Beneath the familiar surface of the oceans lies a realm of darkness, populated by bioluminescent creatures and breathtaking landscapes. From abyssal trenches to hydrothermal vents, we'll set off on an underwater odyssey where every descent promises fascinating discoveries, where pressure crushes and life defies logic. But before you set off on your next adventure, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Thank you and have a great trip! The abyss is the deepest part of the ocean where light never penetrates. It's estimated that the abyss starts at a depth of 1,000 meters or 3,280 feet, but you'll see in a moment that there are different zones. The abyssal plains that make up most of the ocean floor are found between 3,000 and 6,000 meters or 10,000 and 20,000 feet deep, but some men have descended much further. The record is held by American Victor Vescovo, who dived to 10,928 meters, or 35,853 feet, in 2019. This dive took place in the Mariana Trench in the Western Pacific, near the Philippines. Before him, only a few men had descended to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It all began in 1872. When the British frigate HMS Challenger set out to explore the oceans. For 4 years, she scoured the world's oceans with an international team of scientists on board. In 1899, the first bathymetric chart was drawn up. These maps were improved in the 20th century with the use of acoustic soundings. This works like sonar. The device sends a wave across the seabed, then estimates depth according to the time it takes for the echo to return. This is the method used by dolphins, sperm whales, or bats to assess the distance between themselves and an obstacle. It's very useful in the dark. You know that every ocean has its own ridge. Each one is broken up by large faults. In 2014, measurements are further refined thanks to signals sent by 2 satellites, one American and one European. The pressure at these depths is enormous, up to 1,000 bars, or more than a ton per square centimeter. That's the equivalent of a ton on your little finger. But before we meet them, let's start at the beginning. For the moment, you can still see the water and the fish around us. That's because we're in the so-called Epipelagic zone, which is limited to the first 200 meters or 650 feet of water, where light still manages to penetrate. The Epipelagic zone is the area closest to the surface. What species do we encounter in this near-surface zone? Plants and animals are largely concentrated in this zone, as light penetrates sufficiently for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process by which green plants synthesize organic matter, using light, absorbing carbon dioxide from the air, and releasing oxygen. Without it, there would simply be no life on Earth. In the ocean, the presence of plants enables herbivorous animals to feed themselves, and then serve as food for carnivorous animals. Let's start with plankton, since it's the basis of nutrition in the ocean. Its name comes from the Greek and means to wander. Plankton is not a single object, but all the plants and animals that drift on the surface of the oceans. They are often microscopic or very small, and therefore unable to move against the current, so they let themselves be carried along by the currents. Plankton can be divided into two main groups. Plant plankton, also known as phytoplankton, made up of algae, almost all of which are unicellular, known as microalgae. Animal plankton, known as zooplankton. Permanent zooplankton, unicellular or multicellular organisms that are born, reproduce and die as zooplankton. Temporary zooplankton, eggs and larvae of animals such as crustaceans, shellfish, and fish, which metamorphose as they grow and leave the plankton world. The larva then becomes a juvenile. Plankton are the billions and billions of individuals that inhabit the oceans, but also all our waterways. They range in size from 0.2 microns to several centimeters. The jellyfish is part of the plankton and its largest representative. Although most often invisible to the naked eye, plankton make up almost the entire weight of the sea's inhabitants. As I said, plankton forms the basis of all underwater life. If you look at a marine food pyramid, you'll see that 1,000 grams of phytoplankton feed 100 grams of zooplankton, which produce 10 grams of fry, or juvenile fish and crustaceans. These produce 1 gram of forage fish, i.e. small fish. This gram yields 0.1 gram of tuna. It therefore takes 10 tons of phytoplankton to produce 1 kilo of tuna. But without following this chain, plankton also forms the basis of food for baleen whales and filter-feeding shellfish. Now let's talk about algae. As you can imagine, algae are plants, but they don't have roots, leaves, flowers, vessels, or seeds. Odd, isn't it? They develop by photosynthesis, using light energy, carbon dioxide, mineral salts, and water. Algae are classified into two categories according to their size. Macroalgae refers to large algae and giant algae. They grow mainly in shallow waters and attach themselves to the seabed with their claws. In warm seas, they rarely exceed 30 centimeters or 12 inches, while in cold waters they can grow to several meters. The largest, brown algae, can measure up to 40 meters or 130 feet. The microalgae that make up the phytoplankton I mentioned earlier. Each species of algae has specific nutritional characteristics. Some are eaten by humans. Perhaps you've already tasted some. Let's move on to the larger animals. First of all, you're likely to catch a glimpse through the porthole of the small fish that feed on plankton. These include herring, anchovy, scad, sprat, sardines, small mackerel, and blue whiting. I bet you don't know them all. These are fish that live in schools and serve as food for larger fish, and eventually humans. They have agile bodies designed for long migrations. The larger fish that eat them are also part of the pelagic species found in this depth zone. These include tuna, swordfish, mackerel, barracuda, and even sharks. Sharks have a bad reputation, but not all of them dream of a surfer for breakfast. They've hardly changed since they first appeared 400 million years ago. They can be found in all oceans, in both warm and cold waters, close to the coast or in the open sea. This is the result of long adaptation to their ecological niche. There are hundreds of species of shark, 57 of which live in epipelagic zones. We may be lucky enough to catch a glimpse of an offshore white-tip shark, a silky shark, a blue shark, a hammerhead shark, or even the dreaded great white shark. I say luck because most of these species are endangered, threatened by overfishing and climate change. But the largest epipelagic shark is harmless, the whale shark. It can exceptionally reach 20 meters or 65 feet in length, but most of the time it measures between 4 and 14 meters, or between 13 and 46 feet. The biggest weigh up to 34 tons. A diver may feel very small next to it, but there's nothing to risk, since the whale shark eats only plankton, algae, and microscopic animals. It absorbs them all with its enormous mouth, which can filter up to 2,000 tons of water per hour. This mouth, which can measure 2 meters or 7 feet wide, has a large number of tiny teeth, arranged in 300 rows per jaw, so it can't bite. Its only defense is its skin, the thickest and hardest in the animal world. It measures up to 15 centimeters or 6 inches thick and is covered with dermal denticles. Let's continue our descent and observations. Many marine mammals also live in waters close to the surface, even if they sometimes dive deeper. Such is the case with certain species of dolphin. But look, what's this strange animal? It looks a bit like a bottlenose dolphin, but it grazes on the plants on the sandy bottom. It's a dugong, also known as a sea cow. We can see it because we're currently in warm waters close to the coast of the Indian Ocean. It's the only herbivorous marine mammal. It measures 4 meters or 13 feet and weighs up to 900 kilograms or 2,000 pounds. It is characterized by its astonishingly shaped trunk and molars. Its trunk is much shorter than an elephant's. It looks more like large lips. Its teeth are all molars which develop with age. Incisors resembling small tusks appear in males and some females. They measure around 15 centimeters. Have you noticed that it has no dorsal fin? Its caudal fin has the same triangular shape as those of other marine animals, unlike the manatee, which has a round tail. So you can't confuse them. Its skin is smooth and grayish-brown. It can remain underwater for around 6 minutes without breathing. They are very greedy, eating 40 kilograms or 90 pounds of seagrass and algae, which they swallow whole. They live in groups or alone. Mothers have been observed to care for and protect their young for several years. However, they only give birth to one young every 4 to 5 years. The dugong must therefore be protected from marine crocodiles, tiger sharks, and orcas. The dugong is said to sing, although it sounds more like a shriek or a bark. In the wild, dugongs can live up to 70 years. But leave him alone. He doesn't like to be disturbed. Let's take advantage of this calm to observe the corals and their inhabitants. The corals you see through the porthole grow at a depth of 70 meters or 230 feet. We often think of coral as a plant, but despite appearances, coral is an animal. They are related to jellyfish and anemones. There are hard and soft corals. Hard corals are the main reef-building corals. They produce rigid calcium carbonate skeletons. Soft corals do not form reefs. Soft coral colonies resemble trees, bushes, or grasses. Corals wiggle their tentacles to pick up zooplankton and feed. Nearly 800 species of reef-building coral have been identified to date, mainly in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, but new species are discovered every year. Coral can be found at depths of up to 1,800 meters or 5,900 feet. It settles on the edges of canyons, where it builds massive reefs serving as a refuge for numerous species. Coral is often thought of as a plant because it is planted or fixed to a surface and does not move. Coral is an animal with a calcareous skeleton, and as we've already seen, it's in the same family as jellyfish. Coral reefs are home to numerous fish, including surgeonfish, clownfish, and parrotfish. Each one is more beautiful than the next. I'll leave you to enjoy this magnificent spectacle. Oh look, a turtle. They're one of the marine species that dive to depths of 200 meters or 700 feet. But now it's time for us to dive deeper. We're now entering the Mesopelagic zone, which extends from 200 to 1,000 meters, or 250 to 3,300 feet in depth. You need to be well equipped to reach such depths. Here, light penetration is practically non-existent. This zone is also known as the Twilight zone. It represents 20% of the oceans. The pressure is becoming considerable. Despite the lack of light and consequent absence of phytoplankton, this zone is particularly rich in fauna. Animals can still use vision as their main sensory means of locating prey. What will we encounter here? Well, mainly jellyfish, fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. It is estimated that these species total 10 billion tons, yet they are almost unknown to science. There are thought to be around 1 million unknown species. These species migrate vertically every day at depths of between 100 and 1,000 meters. They are the planet's most powerful pump of CO2, carbon dioxide. Bioluminescence is very present in this zone. It's a magical sight. What is bioluminescence, you ask? It's the ability of certain organisms to produce their own light. Fireflies, for example. This chemical phenomenon is the result of a meeting between a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called leucoferase. 76% of species living below the surface of the sea produce bioluminescence. This allows individuals to communicate with each other, attract a sexual partner, camouflage themselves to escape a predator, or simply have a little light. But how do the animals that live in this zone feed themselves, since there are no photosynthetic organisms? They have two options. Feed on particles from the epipelagic zone that fall to this depth, be an active predator, and come up to feed near the surface. Look over there. See those little electric blue dots? Let's take a closer look. These are lanternfish. There are over 250 different species of lanternfish. They play an important role as prey for larger organisms. In the southern oceans, they are a major source of food for squid and penguins. Lanternfish have elongated bodies, ranging from 4 to 28 centimeters, or 1.5 to 11 feet. Their very thin bodies are covered with silvery scales, and their fins are relatively small. They have large round heads and large eyes. Large eyes are common in deep-sea creatures as they help collect as much light as possible. Doesn't that make them look funny? Especially as they also have a big mouth full of long, sharp teeth. Their bodies are covered with light-producing photophores. The arrangement of the light varies according to species and sex. Only one species of lanternfish is unable to produce light. Lanternfish remain in the depths during the day, but come to the surface at night to feed, mainly on zooplankton. This migration also prevents them from serving as a meal for animals living higher up. But they are often the delight of whales, dolphins, tuna, or even seabirds. To reproduce, females release their eggs as a group into the water column, where they are then fertilized by males. There is no mating. Between 100 and 2,000 eggs are released by each fish, depending on the species. Spawning takes place all year round. They even make up 65% of the mass of fish under 200 meters or 650 feet of water. The fry are left to fend for themselves until they reach maturity. For example, the challeode or the viperfish. There are 9 species. Its teeth are so huge that when it closes its mouth, some of them stick out. This is normal since its head measures 2 centimeters or 0.7 inches, and some of its teeth reach 1 centimeter or 0.4 inches. It gives him a terrifying look. It stays in the depths to hunt during the day, averaging 1,500 meters or 5,000 feet below the surface. Sloane's viperfish can descend to 2,500 meters or 8,200 feet. It uses a luminous lure placed at the top of its skull to attract its poor victims. But as if that weren't enough, at night it swims up to a depth of around 600 meters or 2,000 feet to attract and devour other species. It measures between 20 and 35 centimeters, or between 8 and 14 inches long, but weighs only around 20 grams. Its heart is located near its jaw, while the rest of its body is taken up by its digestive system. This enables it to eat prey almost as big as itself. At this depth, you don't have to be picky. They'll eat anything that comes along. The viperfish is dark brown to black in color. I'm telling you about them now because you can see them at this depth, but some viperfish go as deep as 4,700 meters or 15,400 feet. It has been spotted in over a quarter of the world's waters, in tropical and subtropical zones. As we go deeper and deeper, we'll come across more lanternfish. I'll leave you to watch out for their little lights. Another strange animal living in the mesopelagic zone is the squid. One of them, the glass squid, has a transparent body, which is very practical in these twilight waters. You can't see it. There are almost 300 different types of squid, each with its own particularities. But first, what is a squid? Squid are a morphological group of decapod cephalopods. Cephalopods are a class of marine mollusks whose heads are equipped with tentacles, also known as arms. Squid have 10. When edible, they are also known as squid. Their size varies from a few centimeters or inches to 10 meters or 30 feet. They usually live in shoals. Their body consists of a long part called the mantle, which includes the main internal organs. Fins are sometimes found at the end of the mantle. On the other side of the mantle are the head and tentacles. Their brains are particularly well developed for invertebrates. I told you that squid have 10 tentacles, but did you know that 2 of them are longer and act like a whip or club to capture prey? On top of that, their arms are lined with suction cups that help hold on to prey. At the entrance to their mouth is a beak that resembles that of parrots or parakeets. It's the only hard part of their body. This beak is also found in the stomachs of cetaceans that eat squid. They have difficulty digesting it. Squid have no bones, but a kind of shell that runs down the middle of their body between their tail fins. As the inside of this shell is porous, the animal regulates its buoyancy by compressing the gases it contains to a greater or lesser extent. Squid, like other cephalopods, have 3 hearts. The first 2 propel blood to the gills, while the third distributes oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. Squid reproduce only once in their lives and die shortly afterwards. Males deposit sperm-filled sacs in females. Once the oocytes have been fertilized, the female secretes a viscous jelly to protect the embryos. The female then places her eggs one by one at the bottom of the ocean, in a suitable spot for their development. But the squid still has a few quirks up its sleeve. Did you know that it can change color according to its mood? When it's angry, its body is marbled with red or brown spots. Deep-sea squids have photophores on their skin that they can turn on and off as they please. They also have an ink pocket that they can eject to camouflage themselves during an escape. Most squid aren't very big, but there are giant squid. It's no legend. These sea monsters do exist. Jules Verne imagined them in his story 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Pirate tales tell of a giant octopus called the Kraken, which sinks ships and eats sailors. Most of our knowledge of these giant creatures came from strandings or accidental fishing. Until, in May 2024, Australian researchers managed to film an attack by one of these monsters. They used bait to attract it. They saw the 2 giant arms attacking the prey, guided by the light of lemon-sized photophores. Unfortunately for the beast, it missed its prey and collided with a camera. It then fled. Prior to this, the giant squid had only been filmed once, in 2004, by Japanese researchers. The same researchers observed it more closely in 2012, during a dive to a depth of 630 meters, or 2,000 feet. The giant squid measures between 10 and 15 meters, or 32 and 50 feet, but the largest specimen found washed up on a beach and measured 18 meters or 60 feet. Females are larger than males. They average 10 meters or 33 feet in length and weigh 275 kilograms or 600 pounds. The giant squid has the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. Their diameter can reach 27 centimeters or 11 inches. Its only predator is the sperm whale, although some battles between a giant squid and a sperm whale have gone in the squid's favor. No wonder sailors of yore were afraid of them. In fact, the squid is quite greedy, eating everything within its reach: shrimps, hake, anchovies, and even other squid. But rest assured, no sailor has ever been in danger from a giant squid. It lives in deep waters and prefers to keep a low profile. Another frightening animal that lives between 30 and 1,300 meters, or 100 and 4,300 feet below the surface, is the goblin shark. Well, here's one close to our craft. I'm sure you're glad to be safe in our submarine. Its head is truly hideous, at least by our standards of beauty. Its exposed gums contain 26 very fine, spaced, nail-shaped teeth on the upper jaw and 24 on the lower mandible. Its mouth is topped by a long, flattened, knife-like snout. Its color is gray and pink, giving the impression of seeing the inside of its organs. This is not entirely untrue, as the color is that of the blood vessels visible through its epidermis. Its flaccid skin is protected by dermal tentacles, like those of the whale shark. The reason it's so strange is that it's the last living member of the Mitsukuridae family. At 125 million years old, it retains primitive characteristics. It is considered a living fossil. It belongs to the so-called elasmobranch species. These include cartilaginous fishes with a jaw that has never been fused to the nearer cranium. The shark you see here is capable of catapulting its jaw at its prey. The mandible is capable of reaching a speed of 3 meters or 10 feet per second, and of extending to almost 10% of its body length. Once its prey is captured, it retracts its mandible and eats quietly. This hunting technique is thought to be a natural evolution linked to 2 factors. Firstly, it lives in an environment where fish are rare. And secondly, it cannot swim fast enough to catch its prey. It feeds on small fish, cephalopods, and crustaceans, such as squid, octopus, crabs, and shrimp. It measures 4 meters or 13 feet long and weighs 200 kilos or 440 pounds. Females can measure up to 6 meters or 20 feet. The caudal fin is asymmetrical and has no lower lobe, which explains the animal's slow swimming. The dorsal fins are rounded and small, while the pelvic fins and anal fin are larger and more elongated. This shark is found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, but half of all specimens have been spotted in Japanese waters. Little is known about how it reproduces, as researchers have never discovered a pregnant female. They believe that the skate shark is oviviparous. Embryos grow during gestation before hatching inside the mother, where they feed on other eggs. The female would expel the young once they were full term. Its appearance is frightening, but the skate shark shows no aggression towards man. Encounters are very rare, which explains why there are still many questions about this animal. Let me introduce you to another rare and frightening animal, the regolith. It holds the record for the world's largest bony fish. It measures an average of 6 meters or 20 feet. But because it lives in the depths, very few specimens have ever been seen. Because it's so long, it's also known as the ribbonfish, the ribbon of the sea, or even the king of herrings, even though it doesn't belong to this species at all. Its body resembles a long silvery ribbon with a red border. It's a fairly peaceful animal, even if its appearance is rather frightening, with its big bulging black eyes. It has very long front flippers and a large bright red fin on its back. The fin resembles a crown, hence the name regolith, which comes from the Latin regulus, meaning royal. Its skeleton is very special. Its bones are gelatinous. They are very flexible. The only rigid balls of bone are those that enable the muscles to attach to the bones and move this strange snake forward. They are located along its spinal column. The regolith is a carnivorous fish that feeds on small fish. It has therefore been observed among shoals of herring, earning it its nickname. It also eats certain mollusks. It attracts them with 2 bioluminescent organs on its forehead and chin. Its mouth, devoid of teeth, stretches forward thanks to a special jaw arrangement. Food is sucked in like a tunnel. When it runs out of food, it practices self-amputation. It discards a piece of its tail to save energy. As all its vital organs are grouped together in its front part, it can do without part of its tail without any problem. Nor does it need to swim, as it stands vertically in columns of water and moves forward by undulating its dorsal fin, a bit like a seahorse. The regolith lives everywhere on the planet except the poles. Because of its special appearance, it is the source of many sailing legends, from the great sea serpent to the Leviathan. In Japan, it is considered the messenger of the dragon, or the god of the seas. In Taiwan, it's nicknamed the earthquake fish, as fishermen have made an association between its appearance and earthquakes. Does it rise to the surface when an earthquake approaches? That remains to be seen. Did you know that the first images filmed only date back to 2005? Before that, they had been spotted washed up on the beach, but never whole, as part of the tail was missing. Speculation was rife about this strange animal. Even today, little is known about its lifestyle. It is rather solitary and lives below a depth of 500 meters. Before leaving this area, let me introduce you to one last, very enigmatic fish, the coelacanth. For a long time, it was thought to be an extinct species, since we only knew about it from fossils. It appeared 410 million years ago. The first living specimen was brought up by South African fishermen in 1938. A second colony was identified in Indonesia in 1997. It belongs to the fleshy-finned fish family, considered to be the possible ancestors of four-legged animals. Its fins enable it to move along the bottom, and even to catch prey. It also has the beginnings of non-functioning lungs. It thus displays characteristics of the primitive fish that gradually left the water 393 million years ago. What makes it all the more fascinating is that it has survived 4 major mass extinctions without evolving. It spends its days in groups in underwater caves, but at night it hunts alone. It can exceed 2 meters or 7 feet in length, and 100 kilograms or 220 pounds. Along with rays and sharks, it is one of the only fish to have a 2-part skull, articulated by a muscle. Apart from its fleshy fins, it has a 3-lobed tail. Its longevity is remarkable. Ephemer researchers have established that it can live for 100 years, so it's hardly surprising that it doesn't reach sexual maturity until the age of 50. Its gestation period is also long. 5-year-old pups have been found still in the female's belly. It lives between 100 and 400 meters, or 330 and 1,300 feet deep on the margins of the Indian Ocean. As you can see, the Mesopelagic zone contains some very intriguing species. We're now going to descend into the Bathypelagic zone. This zone extends from 1,000 to 4,000 meters, or between 3,400 and 13,000 feet below the surface. This zone is also known as the Midnight Zone. It is completely devoid of sunlight. The average temperature is 4 degrees Celsius, or 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Species living at this depth are adapted to total darkness and pressure. Food is scarce. The wreck of the Titanic lies in this zone at a depth of 3,800 meters, or 12,500 feet. Here, creatures have adapted to the thousands of meters of water above them. Repatriated to sea level, their appearance changes and they gel, as atmospheric pressure is no longer sufficient to maintain their shape intact. Such is the case with the blobfish. When taken out by the tail, all the flesh moves towards the head, giving it a teardrop shape. When you bring it back to land, it looks like a big pile of white gelatin, from which emerges a large nose overhanging a sagging mouth. In its usual habitat, however, it looks just like any other fish. It lives in the Australian Pacific Ocean, at depths of between 600 and 1,200 meters, or between 2,000 and 4,000 feet. It measures around 27 centimeters or 11 inches, and weighs around 2 kilos or 4 pounds. Its large pectoral fins enable it to glide rather than swim. Its gelatinous flesh has a density slightly lower than that of water. This allows it to float just above the bottom. To feed, it waits on the ocean floor for its prey to pass close to its mouth. It can remain on the bottom for up to 4 weeks without moving. Its diet includes crustaceans, particularly crabs, sea urchins, and various mollusks. It poses no threat to humans, as it is almost impossible to encounter one. What's more, it has no teeth. The few specimens that man has seen have been caught by chance in trawler nets. Female blobfish lay at least 1,000 pink eggs. Blobfish reproduction was first studied in 2000. Scientists found that some females laid up to 100,000 eggs. The parents watch over them until they hatch. The eggs, which are extremely light, are clumped together in a sort of pink mass floating above the bottom and are cleaned regularly by the female. Unfortunately, few individuals reach maturity, as many larvae and fry are consumed by zooplankton. The blobfish is barely edible. Its gelatinous flesh is highly acidic. Take a look. Here's an abyssal anglerfish. Also known as Melanocetus johnsoni, this fish belongs to the Melanoceptidae family. It lives at depths of up to 4,500 meters, or 14,800 feet, in the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans. The male doesn't exceed 3 centimeters or 1 inch, while the female can reach 20 centimeters or 8 inches. But look at that mouth. You don't want to stick your fingers in there. It's a female because its mouth is large and filled with long, fine teeth that can hold back when it swallows its prey. This large mouth, combined with an extensible belly, enables her to swallow fish up to twice her length. Its eyes are small and covered by a thin layer of skin. A long spine with a lure is attached to the tip of its nose. It looks like an antenna. It emits light thanks to luminescent bacteria in its body. And what about the male? Well, he's only there for reproduction. He attaches himself to the female and never detaches until he fuses with her. This is called sexual parasitism. Other deep-sea fish have similar characteristics: a small body and a large mouthful of teeth. And look! Another member of the abyssal anglerfish family passes us by. It's a soccerfish. Few people have had the good fortune to come across one of these specimens. They live at depths of up to 2,000 meters or 6,500 feet. One of them washed up in California in May 2021, and another 2 years later. This is rather strange, as they tend to swim in Japanese waters, but this stranding enabled scientists to observe them more closely. Up close. This fish doesn't play soccer. Its name comes from its shape. It's round like a balloon, but a balloon with teeth. Like other members of the anglerfish family, its teeth are long and sharp. It is dark in color, but also has a stalk on its head, at the end of which is a small light. This lure is used to attract small fish passing by and eat them. They saw the light and went in, never to come out again. The football fish is larger than its cousin we've just seen. Females can measure up to 60 centimeters or 24 inches for 2.5 kilos or 5.5 pounds. Males are a little smaller, generally less than 20 centimeters or 8 inches, and have no lights, since like other anglerfish, they cling to the female who does all the work. Some deep-sea fish have teeth so large that they pose a problem. The ogrefish can't even close its mouth. They live in such a hostile environment, up to 5,000 meters or 16,400 feet deep, that they have to eat everything they come across to survive. It can feed on prey as big as itself. Are his eyes bigger than his belly? Maybe not, but his head is. It uses its large teeth to impale its prey before eating it. You don't want to meet him. The young are so different from their parents that we thought they didn't belong to the same species. Despite their large teeth, their size rarely exceeds 18 centimeters or 7 inches. The dark brown to black adults live at greater depths than the juveniles, which are light gray. As you can see, these depths are home to hideous creatures with sharp teeth. But they cohabit with cute little things like the Dumbo octopus. Scientists studying the seabed off California encountered this adorable creature at a depth of 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet. Others are known to live much deeper still. They owe their name to the fact that they fly through the water, waving 2 ear-shaped fins on either side of their body. Their 8 legs are linked by a web of skin. These fins give the octopus the speed it needs to escape from sharks or tuna. Dumbo octopuses spend most of their lives suspended above the seabed. This is where they hunt their prey and lay their eggs. There is no breeding season. The female lays eggs constantly. They feed on crustaceans, worms, and bivalves. There are over a dozen species of Dumbo octopus of different shapes and sizes. Most species are around 25 centimeters or 10 inches long, but some reach 2 meters or 7 feet. They can change their skin color, but they don't throw ink to defend themselves. Don't be fooled into thinking that only small animals live at such depths. Some much larger animals go down for a swim, even if they regularly return to the surface. The world's largest carnivore, the sperm whale, can dive underwater to a depth of 2,250 meters or 7,400 feet. It can be found in all the world's oceans, but only the males venture into the cold waters of the Arctic and Antarctic. Females and young prefer the comfort of warmer seas. The male can reach 20 meters or 65 feet in length, with the head making up a third of its length. It can weigh up to 57 tons. It is the largest toothed cetacean. It has 20 to 26 teeth on each side of its lower jaw. The teeth are cone-shaped and can reach 1 kilogram or 2 pounds for 20 centimeters or 8 inches long. It feeds mainly on squid and fish. It likes all species of squid and feasts on giant or colossal squid. The fish it prefers are tuna, barracuda, and shark. It's a super predator that plays a major role in the oceans, regulating squid populations. Thanks in part to analysis of its stomach contents, we know that it can descend to depths of over 2,000 meters or 6,600 feet. We also know that it can dive for 90 minutes or an hour and a half. Its body adapts to withstand pressure differences. Its thoracic cage is flexible, preventing the lungs from being crushed. Its metabolism can be slowed down to save oxygen. Its large elastic veins can store large quantities of blood and fill the voids created by air compression. Despite this, sperm whales show signs of decompression sickness. symptoms such as bone lesions. Between dives, sperm whales return to the surface to breathe for around 8 minutes. Sperm whales use sonar to locate prey. We think they have poor eyesight, but you can't see anything at depth anyway. They communicate with each other by emitting clicks organized in typical sequences called codas. These clicks can be heard for several kilometers at around 230 decibels at 1 meter. Sperm whales can live up to 70 years. It's a great example of a K-strategy species. Let me explain, it's very interesting. The K-strategy is a reproductive strategy linked to a stable environment, low birth rate, high parental support for offspring, slow maturation, and high longevity. The gestation period lasts from 14 to 16 months, after which the female gives birth to a single youngster measuring 4 meters or 13 feet and weighing over a ton. A beautiful baby. She then nurses for 19 to 42 months, but the young can nurse for up to 13 years. The young remain constantly at their mother's side to protect themselves from killer whale or shark attacks. Females reach sexual maturity at 7 years, males at 18. As you can see, the sperm whale takes its time. Let me tell you about another rare cetacean, the Travers's beaked whale. No, it doesn't have a crooked mouth. It's named after the first person to discover fragments of this cetacean in 1872, Henry Travers. What's more, it doesn't have a mouth but a beak. This one doesn't resemble a bird's beak, but rather a long, slender rostrum, like that seen on dolphins. There are many species of beaked whale, 22 to be precise. Virtually nothing is known about them because they are so rare. On July 4th this year, the body of one of these whales was found on a beach in New Zealand. Until now, only 6 specimens had been documented. There have never been any sightings at sea. These are very discreet animals, living in the southern seas where few people go. We do know, however, that they are great divers, descending to depths of 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet. These whales spend around 3 hours in apnea before coming up to breathe for several minutes. The discovery of this body in good condition will enable its DNA, morphology, and anatomy to be studied. But another species is capable of diving far to feed, the southern elephant seal. This is all the more surprising, given that this animal doesn't always live in the water, but also on rocks and beaches. It lives in Antarctica and southern South America. No need to describe it to you, it looks just like a big seal. In fact, it's a member of the seal family. A very big seal indeed, since males average 4 meters or 13 feet in length and weigh 2 tons. Females are smaller. Those big eyes tell us that their vision is adapted to low light conditions, so they need to capture prey at great depths. Elephant seals stay on land to molt or reproduce, but between these times they undertake great journeys at sea. They travel thousands of kilometers or miles in search of food. They spend little time at the surface, diving constantly to depths of between 400 and 1,000 meters, or between 1,300 and 3,300 feet. They stay underwater for between 20 minutes or 2 hours. Even when they're resting, they're in apnea, floating between 2 waters. Did you know that at such depths you could find so many different species? But let's continue our fascinating journey. We're now entering the deepest part of the ocean, the Abyssopelagic zone. This zone extends beyond a depth of 4,000 meters or 13,000 feet and down to 6,500 meters or 21,400 feet. But how can you survive so far below the surface? It's hard to imagine. Here it's dark and very cold, around 2 degrees Celsius or 36 degrees Fahrenheit. As photosynthesis cannot take place in this zone of total darkness, there are no living plants available as food. But the organisms that live there can feed on pieces of dead plant material that fall from higher up. These pieces, along with animal waste and the remains of dead animals, make up what is known as marine snow. It is also found in the bathypelagic zone. It forms part of the diet of deep-sea animals. The abyssal plain is a vast expanse of muddy sediments. They originate in minerals such as sand, gravel, and silt, but also in the decomposition of the bodies of billions of marine creatures accumulated over millions of years. Life is very abundant in the benthos, i.e. on the bottom, in the sediments. Much more so in the pelagos, i.e. the open sea. It has been demonstrated that the biodiversity present in the sediments of the abyssal plain is as diverse as that of the tropical forest, but even less is known about it. Some very strange species can be found here. Let me introduce you to a few of them. Let's start with a tube worm. Also known as riftia, this giant worm can grow to a size of 2 meters or 7 feet, with a diameter of 5 centimeters or 2 inches. It's an extremophile species because it lives in extreme conditions that are lethal to most other living organisms. It is found in the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean. It lives in a chitin tube, which it secretes and enlarges as it grows. This natural molecule is found in the shells of many crustaceans and mollusks. This tube protects it from predators and harsh environmental conditions. The tube is attached to the substrate, sand or mud, but can also be attached to rock or coral. It does not live alone, but in colonies of 100 to 200 individuals per square meter. They are soft, brown, and red in color. But this animal is truly bizarre. It has no mouth, no digestive tract, and no anus. But how does it feed? Its body is filled with a large sac called the trophosome. In this sac live chemosynthetic bacteria. They use the chemical energy contained in the hydrothermal fluids transmitted by the worm via its bloodstream. Yes, this worm is smart. It has settled on seabeds close to hydrothermal vents. These vents allow heat to rise from the center of the planet. Near them, the water can reach 450 degrees Celsius or 842 degrees Fahrenheit. This is too hot for our worm, so it settles where the water is between 5 and 25 degrees Celsius, or 41 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The riftia has long gills that enable it to extract the chemical elements emitted by its hot springs, including hydrogen sulfide. Worms and bacteria live in symbiosis. Another species to have adapted to the deep sea is the Rhymicaris exocolata shrimp. It too has settled close to sources of heat. It is endemic to the hydrothermal faults of the Atlantic. There are up to 3,000 shrimp per square meter. Promiscuity doesn't bother it. It's not very impressive, but it's a fascinating animal for researchers. Its head is enormous in relation to its body, rounded, with hamster-like jowls. Inside its jowls, it houses microorganisms that feed the shrimp from the surrounding chemistry. It eats directly from the head, bypassing the digestive tract. This shrimp seeks the energy it needs to feed the bacteria near the hydrothermal smokers. The bacteria feed it back. The shell of its head has become so large that its chewing claws have jammed. so it's no longer a predator that catches its prey and brings it to its mouth. She simply waits for the bacteria to do their work. At this depth, every effort is costly. Our shrimp saves itself. Other species work in two ways, like the sponge, Cladorhiza methanophyllum. It lives in symbiosis with methanotrophic bacteria near hot springs, but it is also carnivorous since crustaceans have been found embedded and more or less digested in its filaments. You may spot a few fish, but they are rare at this depth. There's the tripod fish, which seems to be equipped with stilts that enable it to stand on the mud. It measures up to 36 centimeters or 14 inches long, but its stilt fins can be longer. It rests on its fins and waits for a small crustacean to pass within reach, catching it with its oversized mouth. Its eyes, useless at this depth, are tiny. Perhaps our ship's lights will illuminate the repulsive silhouette of a large dike. This sleek black fish is a strange shape indeed. It has a rather large head, and above all, a huge mouth. The tail seems to be attached directly to the head. This is all the more apparent on the pelican Gaussier. Its mouth makes up a quarter of its size. Specimens analyzed measured up to 61 centimeters or 24 inches. This fish has no ventral fins, scales, or swim bladder. This bladder is in fact a gas-filled sac, found in bony fish, which acts as a ballast, facilitating the fish's movement through the water column. A luminous organ is located at the end of its long tail. It emits a red or pink light that attracts prey. Have you noticed that unlike other deep-sea animals, the fish attracts its prey with its tail? It feeds on plankton, fish, shrimps, and small crustaceans. As I said, many species live on the mud at the bottom of the abyssal plain, but we have very little information on them. These include sponges, worms, sea urchins, and other strange creatures. You're sure to spot starfish on our journey, as they can be found at all depths. The record for the movement is a star filmed at 8,400 meters or 28,000 feet. Some creatures are fixed, others move with legs that have become long and slender, rather like waders. What's even more incredible is that there are animals living at even greater depths. Scientists sought to characterize the fauna between 6,900 and 9,900 meters, or between 23,000 and 32,500 feet deep, in the Kermadec Trough, north of New Zealand. They didn't expect to find a giant amphipod measuring 28 centimeters or 11 inches. They filmed a second one measuring 34 centimeters or 13 inches. It was an as-yet unknown species. The animal resembled a giant pink woodlouse. Amphipods are part of a new species discovered in 2009 in the marine trenches bordering Peru and Chile. Amphipods exist everywhere, but are generally no bigger than 4 centimeters or 2 inches. Is their large size part of their adaptation to pressure? It's called abyssal gigantism, but the phenomenon is still poorly understood. Another strange phenomenon was observed on an amphipod seen at Challenger Deep. Challenger Deep is the deepest point ever measured in the oceans. It is located near the Mariana Islands at the end of the Mariana Trench. More importantly, it's 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet deep. That's absolutely enormous, and a bit frightening. Well, even there, we discovered life. The amphipods living at the bottom of Challenger Deep have a special layer of metal on their exoskeleton, a kind of armor. They suck in materials containing aluminum and mix them with chemicals in their intestines. The result is a layer of metal. They're called armored amphipods. In 2014, scientists discovered a sea slug at a depth of 8,143 meters, or 26,600 feet. It is said to have the capacity to withstand a pressure equivalent to 1,600 elephants standing on the roof of a small car. This animal, smaller than a hand, is covered by a thin layer of translucent skin with no scales. Nor does it have a skeleton. It doesn't really resemble a slug, but rather a small fish with an elongated body. In fact, they're called slugfish. At this depth, their eyes are useless, and they use their mouths to pick up waves in the water and find their prey. Their teeth are the hardest part of their constitution, along with the bones of their inner ear. Somewhat like the blobfish, they are made of gelatinous material held together by pressure. They couldn't bear to come to the surface. Their bodies would melt. We're going to rise slowly to the surface. Little by little, the water will lighten as we approach the surface. As you can see, we still know very little about the animals and plants living in the abyss. It's a world we've only been exploring for a few decades. It's a new world for us, and yet a very old one. As everywhere in nature, species adapt to their environment in astonishing ways. Let's start with sight. In the mesopelagic zone, fish eyes or pupils are often larger to catch the little light that still reaches them. However, beyond 1,000 meters or 3,300 feet, their eyes are very small, as they no longer serve any useful purpose. Other senses develop. Some organisms emit light to attract prey, but without being seen. This is bioluminescence. The lower you go, the more you have to adapt to the pressure. Organisms adapt by making their cell membranes more flexible with saturated fats. This prevents them from breaking. Beaked whales and sperm whales that venture far out but return to the surface adapt their dive time. They are able to store oxygen reserves in their blood and muscles. They slow down their oxygen consumption by slowing their heart rate. Finding food to survive is the most important mission for creatures of the abyss. You've seen with me some original hunting techniques, made possible by the large mouths and elastic jaws of certain species. Basically, most creatures are small, even microscopic. The smaller we are, the smaller our needs. Once again, we see that nature is well crafted. She has so much to teach us. And let's not forget that we need her. The oceans are fascinating, but they are also essential to the planet's balance and our survival. Some researchers have been surprised to discover waste even in the Mariana Trench, and unfortunately, in the entrails of the abyss's inhabitants. Some species are victims of overfishing and on the verge of extinction. Fishermen cast their trawls deeper and deeper to catch more and more fish. Yet we must respect and protect the wonderful creatures we have seen and those we are yet to discover. This journey has shown us that the world of the deep is captivating. We know that it still holds many surprises in store for us, and we can't wait. But now we've arrived, we can open the porthole and take a deep breath of fresh air. The oceans are vast, the seabed is different from one region to another, and the temperatures can vary from one to the other. It is undoubtedly this infinite variability that allowed the emergence of such a rich biodiversity. The marine fauna and flora are both amazing and quite extraordinary. Before starting this trip, did you try to imagine what the bottom of the sea could look like? The first 100 meters, the light is still very present. You can easily imagine the richness of the bottom and its spectacular beauty. You may even have in mind a magnificent coral reef. They are so emblematic of the beauty of our oceans that this is often the first thing we think of when we imagine a rich and lush marine nature. But when you go down a little further, nature changes. There is nothing like what you have experienced so far. The seafloor is as varied as the land. On land, you can go from mountains to plains to deserts to forests. Well, you should know that under the sea you can find the same variety of landscapes. You see these ridges? They are oceanic ridges. They are nothing less than submerged mountains. They are underwater. Without diving equipment, you would never be able to detect their presence. However, some of them are gigantic. They can extend for nearly 60,000 kilometers, or more than 37,000 miles. This is without a doubt the longest mountain range on Earth. But that's not all. The oceans also have many volcanoes. There are about 1,600 active land volcanoes, but under the waves, there are nearly 20,000. When a tectonic plate passes under another, it allows the magma nestled several meters underground to make its way to the surface. Gushed then in the form of lava, gas or solid elements, all the heat and pressure stored in the bowels of the Earth. Another spectacular phenomenon of the oceans is the presence of hydrothermal vents in our seabed. These hydrothermal vents, also called white smokers or black smokers, depending on their characteristics, are like marine geysers. But contrary to volcanoes, it is not the approach, but the distance of the plates that is at the origin of the manifestation of hydrothermal vents. When two plates move apart, they create a crack, a fault in the ground. The magma and gas are then in direct contact with the seawater. The extremely hot, about 1200 degrees Celsius, or 2192 degrees Fahrenheit, meets the extremely cold, 2 degrees Celsius, or 35.2 degrees Fahrenheit, only in some areas. The pressure released is enormous. I suspect that this rather unfriendly environment at first glance makes you uncomfortable. But there are a few species that you absolutely must meet before going any further to the surface of our oceans. I would like you to see with your own eyes the phenomenon of chemosynthesis and the extraordinary food chain that persists in such an environment. Here it is, a Pompeii worm. It lives near the dorsal of the eastern Pacific. This amazing animal is able to use its environment to survive. It builds a calcified tube and protects itself inside from the heat produced by the smokers. Despite this protective shell, the temperature can reach 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit. This is probably the most heat-resistant creature we know, both on land and at sea. Other worms, such as the giant tube worm, live in these extreme environments. This colony counts no less than 200 individuals per square meter. Brown in color and measuring up to 2 meters or almost 7 feet, this creature has no mouth, no intestine, and even no anus. And yet, it manages to survive and even reproduce. What you see first is the tube in which it nests, but the body is inside, perfectly protected. It too lives near the hydrothermal vents. To survive, the worm uses what scientists call symbiosis. The worm has a trophosome. This organ hosts bacteria. These bacteria need the worm to feed, and that is why they have taken up residence inside the giant tube worm. But the tube worm takes full advantage of this cohabitation. Bacteria can synthesize sugar from hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and oxygen released by the chimneys, which the worm is absolutely unable to do. However, these sugars form its diet. Without this, it is the death assured. It cannot feed itself. Finally, the sulfo-oxidizing bacteria and the tube worm found each other perfectly. There are many cases of symbiosis such as this one, near the chimneys in the abysses. Look who's walking by, a shrimp. It is completely blind. But what use would it be to him, the sight in this environment, where the darkness reigns in master? Anyway, this little sea creature also benefits from symbiosis. You will see that it too has adapted to its natural environment in an equally extraordinary way. It hosts bacteria and feeds its hosts, while the latter provide it with plenty of food. It uses the same process as the worm we met a few meters away. You have probably heard of photosynthesis for plants. Well, these batteries use another process that scientists call chemosynthesis. It's a process that is very similar to photosynthesis. Without oxygen or light, nature has adapted. From non-organic elements, these creatures are able to create organic elements, and thus provide assimilable food for their hosts. Chemosynthesis is an essential element of the underwater food chain. Many species depend on this first branch. Without them, no life would be possible in the deep sea. Nature is definitely incredible, don't you think? With so little light and oxygen, with such pressure and such temperatures, life is nevertheless possible. But if the ocean is full of life, of extraordinary creatures, each one more amazing than the other, it is also home to animals that are, to say the least, frightening. The ocean is one of the most beautiful places in the world, yes, but certainly not on the whole surface of the globe. At least not at any depth. There are species that are terribly frightening. Their appearance is so frightening that it will probably be difficult for you not to close your eyes for a few moments, just to let your mind accept the idea that such an animal could exist. I reassure you, though, that although their appearance is detestable, even abominable, these sea creatures are not necessarily dangerous. If it can reassure you, the majority of them live very deep in the water, so you won't run into them during a diving session soon. The deepest layer of the oceans is called the abyss. Located at a depth of several thousand meters, the temperature is very low, the light non-existent, and the water pressure excessive. It is therefore not surprising that creatures living in such an extreme environment have traded the aesthetic side of their physique for extraordinary abilities that are essential to their survival. Before descending into the abysses to delve into the bowels of the oceans, I invite you to find a fish that lives near our coasts. It is discreet and blends in with its environment. You will have to keep your eyes open if you want to see it. This species could very well be found in the Mediterranean Sea, but it also populates the west coast of the Atlantic Ocean in the United States. The uranoscope is a special fish. You don't notice it right away, but once your eye is drawn to those exorbitant eyes sticking out of the sand, surprise and fright are usually not far away. Look right under your feet. You see, this fish has eyes, gills, and even a mouth on top. Not very glamorous, is it? It buries itself in the sand with the help of its pectoral fins and only lets its head protrude from the sand. This tactic allows him to deceive his preys and to have them by surprise. When you are not very athletic, you have to be strategic. His physique is not very attractive, to say the least, and is an asset to feed himself. As we have seen with many species so far, on land as well as in the sea, it is sometimes necessary to know how to adapt to survive. This is the case of this fish. Its face, as disadvantageous as it is to our eyes, is for him a real asset that he does not hesitate to use as soon as hunger is felt. You will not escape. You will have to be courageous. We are going to start our descent into the abyss. You will feel more and more oppressed. The pressure of the water becomes more intense with each meter you travel. You will also miss the light. Contrary to the different species you will meet during this descent, you are not equipped to live in these oceanic regions. Your eyes, used to the comfort of light, will not be of any use to you here. This is probably the most worrying thing about the ocean floor, the lack of light. Do you also feel the cold that grips your body? The temperature probably doesn't rise above 4 degrees Celsius or 39.2 degrees Fahrenheit at the most. The abyss is frightening, but this territory is as extraordinary as it is surprising, which is why I want to take you there. It is home to the most incredible legends about our oceans. They are rarely true, but they reflect the passion that drives us. The ocean floor fascinates. We are currently about 1,000 meters or 3,200 feet deep. Here is the first candidate of our list of the most frightening animals, the scaled dragon. It measures barely 16 centimeters or 6 inches, and yet its appearance could scare the bravest and most reckless among us. Elongated and black body, extensible jaw, disproportionate teeth, mobile barb, glassy eyes. Each part of the body is so abominable that the whole gives a frightening appearance. With its 16 centimeters, one could say that it is not so formidable as that. But think again. This deep-sea fish with oversized teeth can swallow prey at least as big as it is. Its jaw allows it an opening of 120 degrees. This is the rat-tailed grenadier. As you can imagine, its name leaves little room for doubt. The appearance of the rat-tailed grenadier is not the most adorable. It lives at a depth of between 600 and more than 2,600 meters below sea level, or between 1,900 feet and 6,500 feet. If its physique is clearly unattractive, one must believe that beauty is not an essential criterion of longevity, since it can live more than 60 years. Its slender body ends with a long, thin tail that reminds us of the rat we know. But if its terrible assets stopped there, it would still pass. Unfortunately, I'll let you get to the other side of this fish, so you can see it from the front. Its head is incredibly large, and totally disproportionate to the rest of its body. Its eyes are exorbitant, and its outrageous mouth makes it one of the most frightening animals of the underwater world. Let's not linger. There are a few other species I'd like to show you. Are you ready to go down a little further into the depths of the sea? The abyss awaits you. It's hard to hold back a scream when you see a damsel. This being seems to be a zombie fish, a real undead finned fish. Its appearance is similar to the eel we know, but its skin is so pale, almost transparent, that it is difficult at first sight to make the connection between these two distinct species. Often confused with fish larvae, the dunny seems not to be completely finished, and yet it is indeed an adult specimen that you see there. The skeleton, the muscles, and certain organs are however underdeveloped, like the eyes, for example. It is for this reason that its appearance is so frightening. It is nicknamed the blind eel. In its defense, in such an environment, its body must be armed to survive. Good eyes would be of no use to her here. On the other hand, his body must be able to withstand an incredible amount of pressure. It's time for you to go up a bit, at least a few hundred meters. The temperature and the pressure of the water are becoming almost unbearable here, don't you think? Here is another fish that deserves to be mentioned for its particular physique. The big swallower lives up to its name and can swallow prey much bigger than him. Living in the North Atlantic, it can measure up to 25 centimeters or 10 inches for the most beautiful specimens. Its body is not very big, and it is not very big either. What is so strange about it? Look a little more closely. Do you see its huge mouth opening up? It's a veritable abyss all by itself. But that's not all. Now look under his belly. Do you notice this huge pocket? That's his stomach, no more and no less. It is particularly elastic, as you can see. It can hold a breakfast that is twice its size and 10 times its own weight. But gluttony is a bad habit. There is an old adage about not biting off more than you can chew. Unfortunately for him, his exceptional abilities sometimes make him make a fatal mistake. Knowing that he is capable of hunting large prey, he sometimes attacks fish that are too big for his stomach. Impossible then to digest it, he dies of the consequences of his last feast. Before ending with one of the most frightening fishes ever, I suggest you to meet a marine creature with less atrocious characteristics. The brittle star is much less charming than its cousin the starfish at first sight, and much stranger. Look at its body. We recognize a nice star shape in the center, but long limbs surround it. With her, everything seems to be in 5 copies. Equipped with 5 jaws, it is also provided with 5 long arms, which help it to move in water. They are very flexible and a real asset for this marine creature. It is at ease in its environment and moves quickly according to its desires. When it is in motion, it seems to offer a real aquatic ballet. It is time for you to meet the emblematic animal of the abyss, the abyssal anglerfish. It could be elected the most dangerous and scary marine animal of the oceans. The abyssal anglerfish is really impressive. To meet it, we will have to continue our dive into the depths, between 1,000 and 3,000 meters. That is between 3,200 and 10,000 feet. The anglerfish has an unusual physique. Its jaw is disproportionate and worthy of the worst horror movies. Do you see those long and sharp teeth? They are capable of biting and crushing animals twice its size. But this is far from being its only asset as a deep-sea predator. The anglerfish can't see very well, but it has a highly developed olfactory system, which allows it to detect many odors in the water. At the end of its first dorsal spine, this small, luminous ball that you can see is a real trap. Prey are attracted to this beneficial light source and are drawn in like magnets. The anglerfish is quick to pounce on the animal and tear its prey apart. As a strangeness never comes alone at such depths, here is another little anecdote about this animal. The one you see here is a female. She can measure up to about 30 centimeters, or almost 12 inches. The males are much smaller, only 3 centimeters or 1 inch. What is extraordinary in this unusual couple is that the male lives attached to the female, like a parasite. This is what allows them to dedicate their life to reproduction. In such an extreme environment, things are complex by nature. Living on top of each other makes things a little easier. The creatures we have just seen are frankly not the cutest there is. We were far from the wonderful world of Nemo, it must be said. However, there is one thing that we must underline. They may have been ugly, but for the most part, they were harmless. This is not the case with the ones that are waiting for us now. If you were already horrified by what you have seen so far, what awaits you is just as impressive. We are here in the Indian waters of the globe, but beware, the colors and the richness of the ecosystem of the region should not put your vigilance to sleep. When you think of a snake, the first thought that comes to your mind is probably a land snake. However, our seas and oceans are also a favorite playground for marine reptiles. The sea snake populates our oceans, and believe me, it's not the friendliest. The sea snake is not a friendly little eel. Don't get too close to it if you don't want to taste its venom. It is not a picky eater and feeds mainly on mollusks, but if it feels threatened, it will not hesitate to stick out its tongue. Be aware that its venom is one of the most toxic and powerful in the world. It contains 10 times more venom than a land cobra. That makes you think. Muscular pain, blurred vision, spasms, hallucination, drowsiness. Nothing very appetizing on the menu after being bitten by one of these sea snake specimens. Here is another creature that is widely talked about on the web, and rarely in very good terms. The barracuda is a species of fish that lives in tropical waters. Elongated body, impressive jaw, teeth in the shape of fangs, 50 kilograms, or 110 pounds, and 2 meters, or 7 feet long. Its physique speaks for itself. It does not have the appearance of a pretty clownfish. In spite of its impressive physique, it is especially its character that you must fear. It is known for its aggressiveness, and it does not hesitate to attack humans if they cross its path. In view of its impressive jaw, I let you imagine the size of the bites it is capable of. It is one of the most aggressive and feared fish. It is known for its temperamental an impulsive side. We are still in the Indian Ocean, and in spite of the incredible beauty of the seascape in front of you, I would like to tell you about this little animal that is right there in front of you. This is an octopus with beautiful colors. It seems almost endearing at first sight. 100 grams for 10 centimeters, it is a featherweight of the oceans. But beware of appearances. Unlike the barracuda, it is rather friendly, but it is also formidable. Brown or gray in color, you will notice that it has the ability to change color. When she feels in danger, you'll see blue rings appear all over her body. This is a signal from her to you to leave her alone. It is better to listen to her advice and not to insist on getting too close to her. It would then realize its very powerful toxic venom, capable of killing a man in less than 30 minutes. The salivary gland contains enough venom to kill more than 20 people. The least we can say is that this little octopus is perfectly equipped to defend itself. After the bite, the venom attacks the body and causes respiratory distress, pain, and paralysis. It's certain death for its victim. The only positive point in this encounter is the non-aggressive side of the octopus. It attacks only when it feels in real danger. You can observe it at your leisure, as long as you respect its vital space and do not show any sign of attack. We could not talk about the most dangerous animals of the marine world without mentioning the great white shark. The movies have made a lot of noise about it, and have painted a rather negative picture of this god of the seas. It lives in the deep waters of our oceans, and does not come close to the coast. This should be enough to reassure you. You don't risk to meet him when you go swimming. Its physique is impressive. As you can see, the animal reigns supreme in this part of the ocean. It measures 6 meters long, or 20 feet. But it is without a doubt its jaw that is the most striking. 300 perfectly sharpened teeth are inside. To put your mind at rest, I would like to specify that its favorite food is not man, but seal, cetacean, or sea turtle. If some attacks on humans have caused a lot of ink to flow, it is not due to the aggressiveness of the shark, but to the very poor vision of this marine creature, which confuses humans with other marine animals. The shark remains a dangerous animal, as its body is armed to be one of the most fearsome predators in the ocean. When it hunts, it is impressive. The attacks are truly spectacular. After seeing a marine colossus such as the white shark, you will probably find it hard to believe me when I introduce you to our latest marine killer. It is, however, one of the most dangerous of the oceans. You're probably thinking of a fish or something like that, but it is nothing more or less than a simple little mollusk. The cone shell is formidable. It lives in the warm waters of the globe and is active mainly at night. It has a mouth membrane that allows it to wrap and gobble its prey. If most of the species of this mollusk are venomous, the biggest ones are very dangerous for humans. There is no anti-venom. A man can succumb in less than 2 hours after having touched one of these shells, notably the textile cone and the geographer cone. The venom of this mollusk is a real cocktail poisoned. It combines the effects of the fugu, a venomous fish with a toxin 500 times more virulent than cyanide, and that of the cobra, a venomous snake whose neurotoxins can paralyze muscles and the respiratory system. This shell leaves absolutely no chance for its victim to escape. It projects its venom with a stinger that you can see at the end of its body. It strikes its victim, paralyzes it, and waits patiently until its feast is ready to be eaten. The shells of this mollusk are often very pretty, with white and brown rings and striations. They attract men for their aesthetic characteristics, but can be dangerous and deadly. Now it's time for you to leave this scary world and see all the beautiful things the ocean has to offer. Because yes, it can be hostile and dangerous at times, but it is also incredible, wonderful, and exceptional. Not all marine animals are scary or dangerous. Some are very friendly and warm, even with humans. When you say the name shark, it is quite rare not to feel a little apprehensive. But don't let its name fool you. The whale shark is a friendly species, to say the least. This marine creature is indeed a shark. The whale shark is an impressive and rather charismatic fish. It is recognizable by its cartilaginous skeleton, its 7 gill slits on each side of the head, and its 300 rows of teeth, that is to say, 3,000 teeth in total. Its disproportionate size, between 8 and 15 meters for the most impressive, does not play much in its favor either. However, it can still be classified as a friendly marine creature. The whale shark is different. Indeed, this colossal fish does not hunt. It filters its food like the whales, hence its name. Its teeth are numerous, but they are very small. That is why they are only used to filter the future breakfast of the animal. These fish are very gentle and curious. They are, in spite of their 20 meters or 65-foot length and their 34 tons, rather friendly marine animals. You can swim alongside it without fear. And then, look at how majestic he is in the water. His movements are smooth and slow. It seems that he gives you time to admire him, to discover him, and to get to know him. Like many shark and whale species, they are very intelligent and generally curious beings. They are not aggressive, and may come and swim beside you for a few moments before continuing on their way. This marine creature is, like the whale shark, one of the most imposing creatures in the marine world. But don't let its size fool you. It's a big teddy bear. The manatee has long been equated with mermaids. Historians believe that this misunderstanding is due to the animal's ability to stand upright in the water. As you can see, it has 2 webbed feet at the end of its body. This animal is very curious, and it is not uncommon for it to seek the company of humans. As you can see, you are as intriguing as they can be to you. Manatees may approach to quench their thirst for curiosity. They want to know what kind of strange fish you are. If they are known for their gentleness, it is because they are not equipped to defend themselves and prefer to flee rather than attack head-on. They are very large marine animals, but they are mostly exclusive herbivores. They do not hunt. In spite of their calm and friendly character, do not try to approach them. As any wild animal, the adults protect the young from predators. They could react badly if you invest a little too close to their territory. However, you can let them approach you without any fear. Like you, they are curious to discover more about the ocean. They wonder what you look like and come to meet you to find out. Let's continue our little underwater trip to meet another member of the shark family, the hammerhead shark. It was necessary to improve the image of these marine gods. The shark still has a very bad image with the general public, but it is important to re-inform people about the curious and gentle character of this very intelligent and peaceful animal. Indeed, its rather peculiar head does not play in its favor, but hammerhead shark attacks are very rare. Many divers enjoy a moment of sharing with these animals during their underwater investigation, and they all came back enchanted by their journey in the ocean. A hammerhead shark that does not want to be approached or wants to be left alone will show you signs of discomfort. If these signals are clear, they are not at all aggressive. It will, for example, have faster and jerky movements to let you know that it is no longer seeking contact. Like the whale shark, you can swim safely alongside it. It is curious by nature and will enjoy your company for a while. Then, when he has quenched his thirst for discovery, he will leave as quietly as he came. Moments like this are magical. To swim a few meters away from such majestic and impressive creatures leaves an inexhaustible memory. The emotions are so strong that they seem almost palpable. Oh, here, look at this mass of vegetation and rock. You see these long yellow and orange tubes. They are marine sponges. Further on in the blue tones and in the shape of a vase, it is another species of a marine sponge. The colors are so beautiful and surprising in the ocean. These sponges are a bit special. Unable to move to feed themselves, sponges have developed a system of circulation and filtration to be able to catch their food. Their main predator is the starfish, even if some fish and sea turtles are also fond of them. After this little break in the middle of rocks and marine sponges, I would like to take you to meet another animal. Otters are not necessarily very attached to humans and do not particularly seek their company. What makes them so charming is their cute faces, but also their jovial and playful character. Mothers are very gentle and protective of their young. Look at this young female, who lets herself be carried by the waves. She cradles her offspring on her belly. In her features or attitudes, she sometimes seems very close to a human being. This is probably why she is so endearing. Their dense and soft fur and their so particular face give them a pretty face. They are cute. They look like cuddly toys. But be careful all the same. In spite of its apparent tranquility, this young mother will not hesitate to bite to defend her young. This is a wild animal, and otters are very protective. If you respect their territory and a certain distance, they will never attack you without reason. The otter is not a threat to humans, but like any animal, you have to respect its nature and its needs. How about returning to the warm waters of the world? If they are heavenly, they are also full of incredible marine animals. We are here at the edge of Sri Lanka. We are going to meet an astonishing animal, both by its size and by its behavior. The sea devil, also called giant eagle ray, has long been frowned upon, especially by fishermen. Indeed, according to the legend, these marine creatures used to drag boats to the bottom of the oceans. If this image still sticks to their fins, it is totally false. Their size is indeed very charismatic, up to 9 meters long. They can weigh nearly 2 tons, so they are real colossus of the sea. However, these animals are very friendly. First of all, you should know that unlike its cousins, the sea devil does not have a venomous tail. If these giant rays are rather playful and curious, they are also very intelligent. Some experiments conducted on this species have shown that they were able to recognize their reflection in a mirror. Curious by nature, they do not hesitate to approach men either. They can even initiate contact. As you can see, they are not aggressive. I invite you to follow me to discover the biggest marine animals in the world. On land, the elephant, the rhinoceros, or the giraffe are famous for their exceptional silhouette. But it is in the ocean that you will be able to admire the most impressive of them all. The marine world is full of creatures, each more extraordinary than the last. The ones we are going to see now would collapse under their own weight if they had to live on land. You have seen many mollusks so far, but none as big as the one we are going to see together. Meet the giant clam. It lives up to its name. You probably can't imagine it when you see it in its natural environment, but it measures more than 1 meter long and weighs nearly 220 kilos, that is to say, more than 3 feet long and nearly 485 pounds. Another particularity of this wonderful specimen of the seas, its color. Each of these clams is unique. No two clams have the same color as each other. Look how beautiful this one is. Treat it with a lot of gentleness and care, because it is undoubtedly an old lady that deserves our greatest respect. She may live 100 years. The giant clam is far from being the only species to play in the heavyweight category of the ocean floor. The fin whale is the second largest mammal in the world and can reach 26 meters, or 85 feet in length, and weigh 75 tons. Yes, you heard me right, 75 tons. How can an animal of such a large size move through the water with such ease? The rorqual lives in groups and rarely approaches the coast. It is a gentle and peaceful animal. As incredible as it may seem, just like elephants, which are herbivores, these animals feed essentially on plankton. So it is not a terrible predator, but rather a colossus with a tender heart. I'd like to introduce you to another mother giant. This time it's a fish, but a colossal fish. The sunfish, also called mola mola, or mole in a more general way. Whatever name we give it, it is still a strange specimen of the ocean. It is very imposing, and its morphology is very particular. It has the shape of a flattened disc. It can weigh 27 tons, or 3 meters or 10 feet long, and 4 meters or 13 feet high, from fin to fin. It is very impressive, isn't it? But his physique should not scare you too much. You'll find out in a few moments he is not an aggressive or dangerous animal, quite the contrary. And then you see, it has not always been this gigantic size. The sunfish is tiny at birth, but by gaining 500 grams a day, this extraordinary fish is 60 million times bigger as an adult than when it was a young fish. Imagine if such growth occurred in humans. But this imposing morphology has more or less embarrassing consequences for him. It swims very slowly, and many skin parasites take advantage of it to nest on the mola mola. Some scientists have observed several dozen species on the same specimen. How does it live serenely with so many parasites? Well, I let you observe the behavior of this wonderful male. You will understand very quickly that this one is as friendly as clever. he does not hesitate to call for help to other species. Those little fish you see on the side of his belly, the cleaning wrasses, are a precious support. They feed on the small invertebrates that have taken up residence on our wonderful mole. This is what we could call a symbiotic relationship. Both help each other to survive. But when that is not enough, the sunfish pulls out another secret weapon. He calls on the seagulls and gulls. Look, that's what he's doing right now. He's flapping his fins on the surface of the water to attract the attention of these birds. Known for their ferocious appetite and greed, they are quick to intervene and feed on this young sunfish. If he approaches, don't be afraid. Of a curious nature, he will surely come to meet you, but he is not aggressive. He simply likes to discover and understand. It is another rorqual, also called whale, which proudly takes the first place of the podium, the blue whale. The largest specimens can reach 32 meters long, or more than 100 feet long, and weigh up to 200 tons. Fortunately for us, despite its absolutely incredible size, the blue whale is not aggressive. Quite the contrary. It is rather calm and peaceful. Its diet is limited to krill. They are often assimilated to shrimps and live in swarms of up to 30,000 individuals per cubic meter of water. The blue whale has made them its favorite food. It can ingest up to 4 tons of them per day. These giants of the sea live in the 4 corners of the world, but they are not always easy to observe. We are incredibly lucky to be able to observe this small group of blue whales. I'll let you enjoy this sweet show for a few more moments. Then, I'll take you to meet other extraordinary creatures that inhabit our oceans. The beluga whale is probably the friendliest and gentlest of all marine mammals. According to scientists and oceanologists, it could even dethrone the dolphin from its first place. Indeed, contrary to the dolphin, which can sometimes attack another congener, this fact is much rarer in the beluga. And then, with its white color and its pretty face, it's hard not to fall in love with it and consider it a friend of the sea, isn't it? Belugas are very social animals, so much so that they can interact with other groups with ease and kindness. They expand their network, which sometimes leads to the formation of very large groups of belugas. What is also very special about them is their facial expressions. Just like humans, we can perceive certain emotions simply by observing their expressions. They are almost the only marine beings able to modify the shape of their lips. This can give sometimes very funny, or on the contrary, worried or sad features. Just like whales or dolphins, belugas emit sounds to communicate. Their forehead is perfectly equipped to perceive these subtle frequencies. It is nicknamed the canary of the sea. It is of course not because of its unusual size or its color, but because of its very particular song that this pretty nickname was given to it. Dolphins. Yes, we couldn't talk about the oceans and the most extraordinary marine creatures in the world without paying special attention to these wonderful princes of the sea. Dolphins are known for their curiosity and sympathy towards humans, but many other species of animals, including dogs, have managed to establish an extraordinary complicity with these animals. They are curious, playful, and even mischievous sometimes. They are also inventive, ingenious, and endowed with absolutely incredible cognitive abilities. Dolphins have always fascinated mankind through their intelligence and their extraordinary social skills. These marine mammals are very protective of their group members. This is even more the case when it is a pregnant female. She carries her young between 10 and 18 months, depending on the species of dolphins. The young female you see in the center of the group is a pregnant female. And if so many people are swimming beside her, it's for a good reason. In dolphins, the mother-to-be is very protected. All the females in the group form a kind of close guard. They each take great care of the young mother. But this solidarity, this group spirit, does not stop there. The female will also have a godmother. This godmother is an older female who will accompany her throughout her pregnancy and give her the benefit of her experience and protection. When the time comes, the mother-to-be and her sponsor will move away from the group. They will get closer to the shallow waters in order to facilitate the ascent to breathe, as well for the young mother as for the future baby to be born. The birth is a magical moment in the ocean, and we will be able to witness this exceptional event. Look, the baby finally comes out of its mother's belly. We can see the tail. It is indeed the tail that comes out first in dolphins, then the body, and finally the head and the vent. Nature does things well. One would think that, like for us humans, an exit through the head would be easier. Easy maybe, but very dangerous for this young dolphin. A reflex inhalation could occur and have serious consequences if the delivery turns out to be longer or more difficult than expected. As you can see, the godmother is always by the side of the young mother. She acts as a midwife and takes care of her throughout the birth. When the mother needs to feed, it is again the godmother who will take over and protect the young dolphin as fiercely as if it were her own pup. Education is a group affair for this marine mammal. Everyone takes part in this precious and essential task. After 5 months, he will be able to feed himself and will benefit from the protection of the whole family, of which he is now a full member. He will learn all the communication codes and social behaviors of his group. These two dolphins touching their fins are saying hello in a friendly way. The sounds produced by dolphins probably all seem more or less similar to you. But our ears are not educated enough to perceive all the subtleties of their language. According to recent studies, the dolphin has a vocal repertoire of nearly 14 signals. The intensity, structure, or duration differ and allow to develop a complex communication. But the dolphin, despite its beautiful voice, uses many other communication processes, including postures, behaviors, and even distances. These beings are very tactile. It is undoubtedly what allows this unification and this solidarity in the group. The physical contact is essential within the group. It is the basis of their communication system. If the social skills of the dolphin have made it so popular, it is also a very intelligent creature, gifted with reflection and capable of sometimes surprising action. It is not uncommon for dolphins to have asked humans for help. Near Hawaii, one of them approached a diver because a hook was stuck in his flipper, for example. He was thus able to benefit from a human help to remove the famous hook and to continue his way in the ocean. Sometimes they come into contact with humans or other animals not to ask for help, but to provide their own. Nicknamed the superheroes of the sea, they have many outstanding rescues to their credit. They have rescued humans from drowning, but also some of them from shark attacks. Dolphins know how to be brave. They have also helped other marine animals, or even dogs, in trouble in the water. The dolphin is one of the most exceptional beings that inhabit our world. How can we not succumb to the charms of the ocean when we meet such creatures? This nice meeting marks the end of our trip. Here we are at the end of our journey. You have been able to admire extraordinary animals and to perceive with your own eyes the richness of the biodiversity that is hidden at the bottom of our oceans. Which species has impressed you the most because of its extraordinary abilities or its physical characteristics?